They demanded special treatment. It cost them $300 and a lifetime ban. Welcome back to Reddit Court Files, where we pull real stories from Reddit and put them on trial. Today's case comes from ProRevenge. Quick note, nothing in this video is legal advice. We're storytellers, not lawyers. Now, let's get into it. Back in 2015, I was working my way through nursing school, clocking in as a waitress at a restaurant that prided itself on word-of-mouth popularity, a detail that will become incredibly important. I'd been there for several months, dependable and experienced enough to informally help new hires once the official trainers let them loose. One such new worker was an older gentleman, a little awkward, a little shy, and understandably worried about making mistakes. He was great to work with, and on this particular night, he was in the section right next to mine, making it easy for me to keep an eye on him and jump in if he got overwhelmed. This was his very first night with his own complete section, so I knew he'd hit the weeds, and I was ready. What he wasn't ready for was his first demanding roundtable. About 6 20-somethings oozing attitude. He came to me, worried and confused. They want XYZ, but I don't think that's on our menu, right? She says we have the ingredients, and just to make it, that the other location makes it all the time. Now, I could have taught him to stand his ground, but first night nerves and a new section aren't the best time for that lesson. So I told him to ask the back line if they were willing. If not, I'd talk to the table myself. The cooks were fine with it. It was basically a wrap if I recall, so no problem. At least, not from our end. This, however, was apparently the cue for the leader of the table to demand something every single time he approached. As soon as he brought the last requested item, she needed something else. I'd been watching and seeing his panicked face, I gave him a nod and started checking in on his other tables, slotting them into my own table cycles. This carried on for their entire meal, incredibly needy and demanding his full attention with zero apology or kindness. I made sure to catch him in the back, preparing him for a possible zero tip, but mostly to calm his panic, and to remind him I wouldn't be touching the tips from his other tables. Honestly, this poor guy looked like he was about to quit on the spot. This leader was rude, impatient, and gave him no space to breathe. I was his emotional support animal at this point, and knowing he was at least twice my age made it even worse for him. The table had come in close to the end of the night and ended up staying past our section's closing, making them the very last table on our side of the restaurant. That's when he came to me, asking how to do an employee discount and if they could use more than one on a single ticket. Wait, employee? I was confused. He then shared that she had spent the entire meal berating and making fun of him because 1, she was a trainer at our other location, and 2, he was the worst waiter she had ever seen. No wonder the other location made her special meals, and no surprise he was such a wreck. On top of that, she was claiming there were multiple birthdays in the group, demanding free cakes all around, and wanted the birthday song immediately. To say I was livid is like saying lava is warm. I was ready to throw hands for this poor man. Instead, I told him to prep the cakes, but not to go out yet. I would go to the boss about the employee discount, which we could actually do ourselves, but this was such a special case, and I would gather the workers for the birthday song. Our managers were absolutely amazing. We loved each one, and all of them had our backs, which is incredibly rare in restaurants, so this was almost the best part. I gave the front-end boss a quick rundown of the table's antics. Remember that word-of-mouth restaurant mentality? Yeah, boss was not having a restaurant employee acting so cruelly, even if she wasn't his employee. I asked permission for what I wanted to do. He smiled and gave it, grabbing the employee numbers she'd given for the discounts, which that trainer would have known could not be stacked, and told me he had a boss-to-boss phone call to make. I then ran to every employee I could grab. Remember, half the restaurant was closing down, so we had several people available, including a dishwasher. I gave them each the fastest explanation of the table and the plan, and then I told the poor, nerve-wracked server that we were ready to drop cakes. The crowd that arrived to that 6-person tabletop was honestly the largest we had ever had for a birthday song, and I am pretty confident the largest that restaurant will ever have. We served free cakes in front of every single seat, and the leader had the most self-satisfied smirk as we all grinned ecstatically and lined up to sing. And oh, did we sing. We all sang that birthday song as loud as possible. Please recall, they were the last table in the section, and for your imaginings, I should mention, this table was in the corner as well. So while we were screaming the birthday song, it was bouncing back from that corner, and it was an excruciatingly long song. Their smiles dropped immediately, and hands covered their ears as they jumped with the audio onslaught. I know it hurt my ears, and that pain is something that still makes me smile to this day. We all stood there, a giant group, happily screaming our restaurant's special happy birthday song, and it still warms my heart a decade later. More than that, while we were gathering and planning and destroying eardrums, our boss was making phone calls in the office. Yes, he called her restaurant manager and informed them of her behavior. And no, she didn't get stacked employee discounts. In fact, she didn't get her discount at all. I know, because I was there when she was handed the phone from my front-end manager at the host desk, and when she started to cry and tried to make her excuses for why she shouldn't be fired. But the general manager, one step below owner, since this was a small company with very few locations, had already been called. Her employee number had been shared, and she was done. I'm not psychic. She could have gone back to her home location and convinced someone to hire her back. Anything is possible. But I know how she treated this poor guy. I know how I told the tale to my boss, and I know the quiet rage he so rarely touched when it was rage. I would have almost given up joining in that screaming song to be able to hear those phone calls. Almost. Turns out, some people forget that treating others poorly has a way of coming back to bite you, sometimes very loudly and with very real consequences. That's the verdict on today's case. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was justice served? Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a filing.